All right, welcome back to another episode of Asset Coach and Tax Strategist. And thanks so much for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the little subscribe bell. We drop episodes every Thursday. And if you like our content, go ahead and give us a thumbs up and feel free to add comments down below of anything that you would like to hear us discuss. And so today we're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about how to build wealth. It's going to be a short episode because we're not going to go into the details. It's lifelong lessons, so to speak. But what we want to do is really kind of talk about what we would consider 5 lessons. You can find these lessons with Robert Kiyosaki and a lot of guys that are like Robert Kiyosaki on YouTube and that have written books. The key here, these 5 things that we're going to discuss, is the first thing, systems. You need to have systems in a business. Cash flow. Got to have cash flow in a business. The sales are going to create the cash flow. Need to use leverage. Leverage is very important. And then financial literacy, understanding all these 4 things and the importance of each of these 4 things is what the financial literacy is. So let's kind of go start off with the first thing. And the first thing is systems. What is your system? If you're offering a product or service, you need to have a system in place. The system in place is really what allows you to scale, allows you to simplify or more efficiently and effectively deliver your product and or service. Okay. So it's really important for entrepreneurs really build themselves jobs. And this is the hard thing that businesses, you see some businesses that have been around, the owner's been around the entire time. He's still working like a dog in the business. And this is really why, is that they haven't tried to figure out a way to replace themselves. And the first thing that a business owner needs to do is think about, how do I replace myself? That is what systems do. But it's not replacing yourself with another human being. It's replacing yourself with a system that may require a human being, but also may require technology or both. But that system in place is what's going to allow it. One of the most popular examples is obviously franchising, specifically McDonald's. So if I'm not sure if you ever watched that movie Founders about Ray Kroc and just how the McDonald brothers created this system so effective and efficiently, that's the key. Systems are basically your wealth accumulation machine, because once you build a system in a business, you now know how to build a system. And you can add business, you can add anything into that process, if you will. The second thing is cash flow. This is more important than profits. A business isn't required to make profit. You don't need profit. You need the flow of cash. You need cash that's going into your system, into your business, that spreads the system. The system needs to replenish the cash flow. Many businesses want to try to show profit. But profit is not necessarily important and a good thing. I mean, a good example would be like Amazon. If you think about Amazon, well, for the first 19 years, they showed a loss. Why? Because they always took the cash flow, they always took their profit, dumped it back into the business. Now, their loss doesn't mean they actually lost money. It means that they could have been a paper loss, meaning that they get certain tax benefits, they get certain other effective, efficient ways of utilizing a dollar in different ways. And that we'll talk about that on the leverage side in a few minutes. So showing a profit in this ego and pride of my business is profitable actually could be the beginning of the downfall of your business, especially if you don't have systems in place and you don't have a good plan for your cash flow. If you have little cash flow, you can't put money into marketing, and you can't put money into marketing, it can't create new sales, which is the third point we're going to talk about. And if you don't have sales, then you can't have people, and people in cash flow marketing is the most important thing. The cash flow has to serve the marketing and the systems in place. Okay. So the third thing would be sales. This is the problem that solves it. What do they say in sports? A winning locker room solves all problems. And sales solves a lot of problems. Not every problem, but a lot of problems. And the moment you see in sports a locker room and people are backfighting, typically it's because of one thing only, is they're losing, right? And so fingers start getting pointed. But sales solve this. Sales creates the cash flow. That cash flow allows the funding of the systems, which is marketing and people, right? And so you kind of see this process here. So if you can't sell, nothing else really matters. Nobody cares about your logo. Nobody cares about your website. Nobody cares about a business card. Your sales is the way you communicate about your product and your service, your system. That communication of what you're doing and what you're offering is what is the key to allowing cash flow to serve the system you've built out. Okay. So this is hard. This is really hard. There's a lot of businesses that have been in business for years that can't really figure this out. And they struggle year over year over year. But this is an extremely important thing. And sometimes as an owner, I did this with myself. I realized that my information, my knowledge was more important than me trying to bring on clients in that sort of area of the business, if you will. So what did I do? I had to replace myself in that area because I realized I was becoming less effective in that communication because of my knowledge base where I wasn't able to be relatable. So I had to focus on serving and creating that sales process, if you will, the bringing on a client process so I could be the expert, the content. That increased my value when I was able to replace myself on that side. And so that's when my business partner, Joe, and I joined forces, so to speak. And then from there, things started to really flow. But you as a business owner have to step back, look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, who, not how. Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote a book called Who, Not How. And really what he's talking about is that you don't always have to figure out how to do something. Now, sometimes we want to, if you want to build a deck in your backyard, you can hire someone to do it, but maybe you just want to do it and you want to learn how to do it. That's awesome. But if you're in the business of building decks and you don't know how, you want to find somebody who knows who, and there's things that we're just not good at. There's things that we have, that's not our superpower. It's really our kryptonite. Well, that kryptonite is somebody else's superpower. Right? So you need to go find that who, and that's what I ended up doing. So as a business owner and to go through this process, that's what you really need to do. Now, the fourth thing is debt, which could be dangerous if you don't understand it. If you don't know how to leverage debt, meaning other people's money, the cost of other people's money, the cost of leverage is very important. So many poor people fear debt. You have the Dave Ramsey's out there. Well, his general public use the wrong debt. The smart debt, the good debt, is the debt that allows you to leverage to buy more assets that creates what? More cash flow. Right? You see the system. So if you're able to leverage and you solve this sales communication, the communication, and then you're able to add to the cash flow and you're able to add to the system, you can see how this process flows, right? But sometimes other people's money, they'll have the aspect. And there's a lot of people who have capital that are looking to deploy capital in a good project. But if you don't communicate your project, then their good capital is not going to help you, but you need the help. And they're looking for good places to increase the value of their capital. So there is a cost of debt, there's a cost of leverage, but it doesn't have to be an interest rate. It could be equity. It could be based on what you're both agreeing to as a way to utilize and how you see that leverage. You have to understand what it is. Everything in business is a negotiation. And so if you understand that, then both parties agree to the negotiation, but the outcome has to be beneficial and advantageous for both parties, if you will. But debt is a tool. It's no different than utilizing a computer. That's a tool. It's no different than utilizing your phone or a car. It's a tool. It's a tool to get your business to the next step and where you want it to be. But if a tool in the wrong hands and tools being used with an uneducated mindset, then yes, it could be very detrimental to your situation. Okay. The fifth one, again, is what we were talking about, financial literacy. The biggest expense in your business, the biggest expense in your life is your ignorance, your inability to understand things, your inability to take the time to understand things, or your inability to try things. You will always have the opportunity to make mistakes. Mistakes are not bad. Mistakes are mistakes because they're not the right thing for you. Those mistakes may be the right thing for somebody else, but it becomes a mistake in your world because it's not leading you to the direction or the thing that you want. So these mistakes have to be learned. They're learning opportunities, right? Same thing with success. Same things when things are going your right way. You need to utilize this as financial literacy of understanding. So you need to understand what's your financial statements. When you have cash flow going into your business, when using leverage, it's going to be on your balance sheet. You have cash flow on your profit and loss. How do these These financial statements dictate and determine what my business is. My system in place, where's the cash flow going into the systems in place? Where can it go? Do I have future cash flows coming in? Have I built out a product or service that allows me to have a continued cash flow process? Or do I have to replace that cash flow every month because the sale is a transaction and not a subscription, right? These are all things that are part of this business understanding. So you need to understand your financial statements. Then you also need to understand taxes. You need to learn taxes, not just income taxes. You need to understand your product taxes. You need to understand your local taxes. You need to understand the sales taxes. You need to understand taxes as a whole, because your dollar is leveraged and can only do certain things, but it only does those certain things based on your understanding of that dollar and those certain things. So your dollar could be $1, or your dollar could be $5, or your dollar could be $10. Okay. But your financial literacy and understanding the things we just talked about allows you to understand it. And this is how money moves. It flows, is understanding this knowledge and how to compound this money to be more and more in what it is, and using the tools and the systems, not allowing fear. If you fear something or you're scared, it's because you're ignorant. You haven't spent the time to understand it. Don't make a decision off of that. Go learn it, understand it. If you still are unable to because of whatever the situation is, then that fear is telling you you need to learn more before you act. Okay. And so this is what business is really all about. It's not being about the smartest guy in the room. It's understanding these 5 things. There are other things that we need to know as well, but these are the 5 things that I think are most important. And Robert Kiyosaki talks about this stuff as well. So it's really important. This is not a Bob Wolf opinion. This is, Robert Kiyosaki's been doing this for decades. And he's, when I read his Rich Dad, Poor Dad and his cash flow quadrants, what caused me to go into this business, 20 plus, over 2 decades ago. So this is really important to understand this part of the process and understanding the business and that sort of stuff. So hopefully this was helpful. Give us a thumbs up on this content. Add any comments down below. Feel free to subscribe to this channel as well. We drop episodes every Thursday. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Go make it a great day.